I can imagine looking after this guy. You have him, you host him at your place, and he's probably going up to everybody, asking invasive questions, being incredibly pushy, and then you start playing, you start going to show off your movie theater, and he just breaks into tears at the opening scene of The Greatest Showman. Shit, dude. Alrightio, welcome back. I haven't filmed anything for this channel for fucking ages, to be honest. I think it's been like a year and a half. But this article by Wired, if you've seen it, you've seen it. If you haven't, well, I'm going to read through it now. But it is a pretty wild indeed. I'm very surprised this ever got published because it is quite the hit piece. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump right into this and start reading it and commenting on it as I see fit because yeah, it's going to be quite a wild ride. All right, so if you don't know who this man here is on the screen, this is Brandon Sanderson. This comment is called "Brandon Sanderson is Your God." Here it is. Title here. Quite the, and zoom in actually, quite the pretentious title, if I must say so. And you would think that would, we'll get into it, you'll see. So, yep, he's the biggest fantasy in the right in the world, very Mormon. These things are profoundly related. Not really. But anyway, in most years, Brandon Sanderson makes around 10 million. Last year, made around 55 million. Obviously, this is a lot of money for everyone. Blah blah blah. For a writer of young adult-ish, never-ending, speed-written fantasy books is huge. By Sanderson's estimation, he's the highest-selling author of epic fantasy in the world. That wouldn't surprise me. He is a very prolific writer. He releases a lot of shit. I think pretty much every year he releases one novel. Yeah, so he came to read blah blah blah. Is he even a good writer? No one had the first clue who I was talking about. Well, if you work for a fucking publication who, well, I know the whole publication of the wide, but if your office is meant to be about sci-fi and fantasy and you don't know who Brandon Sanderson is, I'm sorry to say, but you're not really plugged into the sci-fi and fantasy genre if you don't know who Brandon Sanderson is. It's like saying you don't know who Tolkien. Well, probably not that level, but more like George R. Martin. I'd say he's pretty much the same level of literary side of things. On one hand, who cares? Sanderson has millions of fans over the world. True, all over the planet. Sorry, it doesn't matter that some lose a single magazine, even if it is one of the nerdier ones. Have never heard of him. Yeah, I'm kind of doubting your nerd credentials there. And this, I may seem kind of mean spirited at the moment, but yeah, this gets very mean spirited soon. On the other hand, the ignorance goes far beyond White, as I can tell. Sanderson, who has been topping bestseller lists for the best part of the 21st century, has not been written about any depth in any major publication ever. I call his publicist to confirm, well, we have a piece coming up in LDC Living, later said, there's a magazine for Mormons. Well, yeah, he is probably one of the biggest authors at the moment in the fantasy thing, so I imagine a lot of the people who are in the religion he belongs to would naturally just be attracted to that. So, which makes sense. Sanderson's extremely Mormon. Is he? I don't think he's extremely Mormon because like he's written a lot about well, he hasn't written a lot, but he has started putting some LGBT representation into the Stormlight archive. And the Mormons normally aren't too fond of that, so I very much doubt that. As he writes fantasy, so it's obviously a subliterary genre, but so do J.K. Rowling, Margaret Atwood, and George R. Martin, and they are household names. Is because none of Sanderson's work has been adapted to the screen. I mean, probably the average person probably wouldn't know who an author is unless they got some form of adaptation, because obviously when you do an adaptation, you're also changing the medium, so people who are interested in that medium but not the medium of books are more likely to hear of you that way. He wrote the 3 of the World Time books. The adaptation series came in Amazon Prime in 2021, 21. Could it be finally that because he's a weirdo Mormon? No, that's not the reason at all. Also, the Wheel of Time books that was adapted was just the first one. He wrote the last three. So, I mean, and when you're going to say Wheel of Time an adaptation, you're going to also put Robert Jordan. So that's weird. So also Scott Card in this game, Glenn A. Larson, the original Black Scarlet, and Stephanie Meyer, Twilight Woman. I mean, only as a weirdo. I mean, I can't attest to that, but seems kind of weird. As I said, it seems kind of mean spirited to just say they're a weirdo. I mean, you're right for Wired. Come on, to talk about throwing fucking stones in a glass house. Sanderson, when I eventually met him in person, makes versions of these excuses plus others for his rightly obscurity. Again, if you're into fantasy and sci-fi, he's hardly obscure. It's like even if you hadn't heard of him, you'd probably hear of his works. Like if somebody said Mistborn or the Stormlight Archive, you'd probably be like, "Oh yes, I've heard of those." Because I mean, generally, I don't remember authors unless I've actually read the book. So yeah, if you haven't read the books, like, but I've heard about them. Like I've heard about like plenty of books I haven't read. So kind of weird. It's kind of fun to talk about until it isn't, and then I realize in a panic that I now have a problem. Sanderson's excited to talk about his reputation. He's excited, really, to talk about anything. Cool. That should make writing an article about him kind of easy, shouldn't it? But none of this self-analysis is, for my purposes, exciting. Well, maybe you're not very fucking exciting. In fact, at the first dinner, the overly floppish Utah Chinese, this being days before I meet his extended family and blah, 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 I find Sanderson depressingly story-killing lame. I mean, that's just you being a fucking asshole, to be honest. Sets across me an empty restaurant, kind of lawly to make sure it's not blah blah blah. He's wearing graphic tee, ill-fitted blazer, which he says he wears because it makes him look professorial. It doesn't, and he isn't. Well, he actually is a professor. You can go watch his fucking. You can go watch his blanking his lectures online for free on YouTube. He's got I think 3 series on just how to write books. So unless that word means only believing everything you say is worth saying. I mean, I don't think anybody believes everything they say is worth saying, but like when you're entertaining somebody, you're probably going to try and talk a lot to, keep them entertained. Okay, but almost none of that is usable, quotable. I begin to think this is what all the way I drove from San Francisco to the suburbs of Salt Lake City and the freezing cold end of winter for. Oh, look at this highly sophisticated man from San Francisco. Woo! Fancy San Fran. Oh, fuck off. For some free of his friends and dips blah blah blah. This must be why nobody writes about him. Well, probably not the reason. So it's a mine. I have to. His wife is there. His biggest fan. Always his first reader. Making polite comments. I don't care. Maybe nobody writes about you. I said because you don't write very well. Fucking what a prick you'd have to be like, oh, I'm interviewing this author. I'm just going to start to say, you don't write very well to them. The world unfreezes. He agrees. I mean, he probably didn't really agree. I mean, if you're going to say he doesn't write well, like his prose isn't very good. I don't think anybody's really going to argue with you there that his prose is nothing amazing. To use a fitting pun, it's nothing to write home about. Although you seem to. It's not that Brandon can't write. It's more that he can't not write. I mean, he does write a hell of a lot, as I've already said. Glyphomania is the name of the condition, a constant compulsion to get words out, down as much as quickly as possible. The concept of vacation confuses Sanderson. He once said because for him, the perfect vacation is more time to write. Yeah, because he fucking loves his job. Don't you all want a job you love like this? I would. Okay, his schedule is budgeted down to the minute, months out to maximize the time he spends, rather counter ergonomically on the couch, typing away. Most of the days always at 1 p.m. Exercise, writes for 4 hours, break for wife and kids, and writes for 4 more hours. After that, he plays video games or whatnot until around 5 a.m. Fucking, that is quite this sleep schedule, I must say. A powerful sleep pill is all that works finally to get him and the voices in his head to shut up. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to move on. In the months or so it has taken for me, oh god, I'm only like a quarter way through this. This is going to be taking a while. Oh shit. Oh, all right. Sanders has published 2 books during the COVID lockdowns. He wrote and or edited 7, 2 for his regular publisher, a graphic novel, and 4 more in secret. Yep, and that was fucking fantastic. I can't wait to read them all. Telling no one but his wife until he surprised announced a Kickstarter in March 2022 to crowdfund their publication, hence the 42 million raised in a month. Yep, by far one of the most successful Kickstarters ever. Since his debut at Elantris in 2005, he's published 30 plus novels. Wow, the biggest one exceeding 400,000 words. Sorry, that would probably be Rhythm of War, I'd say. There are far more if you count the novellas, graphic novels, and stuff for kids. Yep, I've read 17 of the actual books, or maybe 20. Um, okay, so you've written that many. You've read around half his books, and you weren't excited to see him and talk to him. I can't find that doubtful. Okay, hey, yeah, okay. Pointless as major books are all set in the same universe. Yet the Cosmere. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, the Cosmere. They're all meant to blur together. Not really. It's like saying Stephen King books are all set in the same multiverse, therefore they're meant to all blur together. It's like no, they're meant to. They do all stand on their own. It's just you can, if you have read a lot of the books, you can start saying, oh, that's somebody from this era. Like Hoyd is somebody who comes up in all the books. So if you've read a few, you'll be like, oh, that's Hoyd, and like especially in the Stormlight archive that has, I think you see as Vashnia from Warbringer in it, as well as the main chick, is it Vivian, something like that, Sasavia, I remember that, but yeah, she's in it as well, and they obviously have their bichromatic breath. um it's more so something, if you just read the Stormlight archive you probably wouldn't pick up on it, but if you read other things it enriches the experience more. Yeah, okay. Weird thing to say they blur together. Most will hear this and think, at this rate, none of those words could possibly be any good. They'll be right. A grossing reason at a sentence level, they're no gift to English prose. Yeah, that's only one aspect of writing, though. Like that's prose is one aspect of storytelling. You have the actual storytelling parts, the plot, the characters, the world building. Prose is just one aspect. Okay. Yeah, saying they're no gift to English prose, sure, but that's not to say none of the words could be possibly good, because they're good in expressing different things. Okay, the early the early books especially. My God, here's a sample. Why would you say? Yeah, I hate people doing things like that in articles. It was going to be very bad this time. Okay, I mean it's not. It's pretty basic. Yeah, another one. She felt a feeling of dread. Yeah, she should felt dread. Yeah, so it's some redundancy. There's a pinch of a redundant restriction. The city is tranquil, quiet, peaceful. I mean, to be honest, yeah, it is kind of repetition, but you could do it in a different way. So, for example, you could say, like, if you're trying to get a different tone across, you could say the city was tranquil, quiet, but you could also say it was ominous. It kind of does change the tone. Like these kind of synonymous, but they're not quite. You could change. Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, it is. They are close enough that I can see where he's coming from. But as I said, if you change like the last word to ominous, that would change the tone massively. Anyway, many things from the bones and beasts are enormous, dark places. Yeah, goes on, blah blah blah. He plays first, blah blah blah. Sights, frowns, raises the eyebrow, cocks the head, shrugs, snorts, and then at the same time, there are multiple ones on a page. Yeah, but this, I mean, yeah, okay. I count 7 books in which one of the character reads about the metaphors. I have trouble with metaphors. One literary says of their own work. Sanderson said, I detest rewriting. I write for endings and I write to relax. Shows he writes by one metric at 6th grade reading level. I mean, there's nothing really wrong for that. And I don't, he may not like rewriting. I think that's true for all authors, but it's not like he won't rewrite. Like if you've read, uh, he changed the Way of Kings by a hell of a lot. Same thing with Elantris. I believe the brother for the main character was originally meant to like come in with an army at the end, because he was like sent off into the countryside because he was kind of a psychopath. But then he just trained all the peasants in warfare, and then he actually saves the day and stuff. And it's different. And the Way of Kings is like totally fucking different. So it's not like he doesn't rewrite. Anyway, here's where I'll stop using Sanderson's words, written or spoken, against him. I mean, a little late now. It's not fair. He's simply not, I'll say it again, very quotable. Okay, yeah, as I said, that hasn't stopped you so far. I spent days with the man. I watched his YouTube videos, made a dent in his podcast empire, mostly of it incredibly about writing. Yeah, he's an author. That's what people want to hear him talk about. Like his books, it all blurs together. It takes some 40 pages of notes for the story. And wait, you couldn't find anything quotable in 40 pages of notes? Okay. And here's my transcripts. They are spat out when I fed it many hours of recorded audio. Now that I'm writing, I find it referring to none of it, possibly blah blah blah. The sense right me. Okay, fucking hell. Uh, so I will. Jesus. He talks about how Sanderson fucking is boring to read. Fuck, this guy is fucking no better as a writer. Jesus, how was story's end? I promise. I'm sprinting towards it. I'm only like halfway through, so I doubt it. So I said because you see, Sanderson did say one thing to me, one miraculous thing that stuck that I remember. These 5 months later, with perfect clarity, just 7 words, the true ones, blah blah blah. Okay, whatever. Let's go. 10 seconds ago until the launch lights are flashing, music is thumping. This is sick. Someone whispers behind me. Yeah, you're at a convention, so for Brandon Sanderson, so I assume people are going to be kind of excited to see what Brandon has to say regarding his future books. Okay, there's words no count round to the seconds at zero, enormous applause, and then the VP of Merchandising Events walks out. Yep, this is Dragon 2022, second annual convention of Sanderson's Worlds and Works. The first one the year before, 12,000 translated at this event, a 2-day in November. The attendance is closer to 5,000. Very impressive. Even though the con is being held in the biggest venue in downtown Salt Lake City, the Salt Palace Convention Center, fans are turned away from the panels left and right. I'm going to get drained quickly. Fucking hell. Okay. The VP of Merch and Events tells me later, and 7,000 people expected for 2023, and in 2024, Send plans to release the book 5 of 10 of the Stormlight Archives, the biggest franchise, the one with, a full 12,000 people. Yeah, probably, yeah. If I could make it, I'd fucking head out. I'd love to see, I'd love to just go, go there just for, yeah. The Dragon said, blah, blah, blah. For now, the events are turned away, are unconquerable spirits, as typically the case of these things. There's a general air, warmish body odor of unself-conscious. By my rough count, there are some 3/4 of the attendants are men, boys, blurring together in a massive payoff. The she nerdy and Sanson, Jesus, appropriate graphic tees. The women, few or number, tend to be better cosplayers, a lot of billowing cloaks, sprightly makeup, precious weapons. There's an area for refereed fights. If you don't come prepared, never fair, because the sprawl of precious ball, sand and no, blah. Sentence of fuck it, I can't bother pronouncing it. Is endless art, clothes, figurines, games, jewelry, ornaments, special edition books. Later opener, not available yet in the style of telepathic sword and nightblood. Okay. Again, you're writing for the Wired. It seems to be like again throwing a pot. I'm gonna say just use a different metaphor. Pot calling metal kettle black. To complain about nerds smelling bad and all looking the same. Like, yeah, you work for the Wired. Again, yeah, pot meet kettle women. Yeah, okay, that seems probably true. I don't know. Um, no real reason to doubt it. I've been to MTG conventions before, so probably true, but still a little probably hypocritical there. I would would think so. I talk to many of the fans as I can, some in their teens, others in their 60s. Yep, he has a wide audience. From here in Utah, as far away as India, Norway, Australia, they're sweet. Many of them I have been reading since the beginning, since Elantris. Teenage girl announces, I'm here basically because I'm a huge nerd. Everyone's smiling, sharing info, and panel gossip. One guy from Massachusetts tells me he spent $170 on a rubber sword, not an blade. This one called Malaria. I don't know that sword. Is that? I don't know that one. Anyway, it's bigger than he is. He won't be able to take it uh, home on the play. Yeah, because he'll probably just get it shipped. Okay. Another guy, 41, tells me he made his own sword, Firestorm. They all have names. Himself. Cool. That's probably took a long time. Very impressive. It took more than a year. Yep, on and off to design and 6 weeks 3D print. I see a young couple with very young kids. Your introduction them to Fantasyland, I asked. Jesus, gesturing to the stroller. Trying to, the dad says. Okay, probably thought it was a kind of a joke, but who knows with this guy? He probably said it in the meanest way possible. The one question I asked practically, why Sanderson? Because he's got great world building and good characters, and his plots they always end interestingly. Only to ask it a few times to realize the answer is always the same. It's a two-parter. First part, Sanderson's characters. They feel like real people, as I just said. Everyone insists. Multiple parents have named their kids after their favorites, usually their princely protagonists who have overcome various depressions and triumphs. Triumphs chivalrically. I've done some things I'm not proud of, one man tells me. Then he reads the first Stormlight book, The Way of Kings, and now reformed. He has a 2-year-old son named Kaladin. Cool. Second answer to why Sanderson. In his worlds, there is possibly what is possibly best known for, world building as it's called. Yep, Sanderson dreams up far off lands, sometimes cities, sometimes whole planets for rules and systems and politics, and then he populates them with characters who fates also the worlds. So the second answer is just an inverse of the first answer. No. Character and world building are connected because characters inhabit worlds, but you can have literally almost no world building and have good characters, or you could have bad character design but have great world building. Those two things are separate things. Again, it's sort of like the whole back thing with prose, elements of writing. You have, your prose, your plot, world building, characters. They are different things. That's like saying plot and prose are the same thing. Sure, they're both to do with generally the actual way the book is written, but they're not the same thing. Okay. Uh, okay, well, you can't have world building without character building. False. Some characters die, some become gods, the good ones, and most of them are very good, aspirantly good. No one has sex, they don't save lives. Well, he uses the whole fade black system for sex. They're all good? That's definitely not true. I mean, if you look at the Stormlight Archive, sure, Kaladin is he's pretty good. It doesn't have too many flaws, I would say, but like if you look at Dalinar, the guy is literally a fucking war criminal. Uh, if you go to Mistborn, Vin she's not quite an anti-hero, but she's not a goody two-shoe. I can't remember who was it. Kelsar. He's definitely not a good guy. Yeah, they're not all goody goods. That's just blatantly false. If you read 17 of his books, I'm surprised you would say something like that. What nobody, a single person, complains about in my 2 days walking the palace floors is Sanderson's writing. Yeah, probably because they can look past it. If they mention his sentences at all, it's merely to acknowledge that they're easier to read than, say, Tolkien's. Okay? Whose work they may have well graduate to. Okay, come on, try to find me. Seriously, try to find me someone who's into fantasy and sci-fi who hasn't read Tolkien. Like, they've probably all read Tolkien. It's kind of bizarre to say, oh, they'll graduate to Tolkien. Like, okay, yeah, I read Sanderson, I've read Tolkien, I've read Martin, I've read Robert Jordan. I fucking okay. Surely he's not a great writer. Again, you're conflating being a great writer with writing great prose. Okay, for example, you say if you want someone with fantastic prose, say Patrick Rothfuss. He's got fantastic fucking prose. His pacing is dog shit. Uh, he's basically trying to write a trilogy, and I think the reason he hasn't released the last one is because he basically at the beginning he said, oh, this is all the things my main character will do, and then at the end of the second book he's done like a quarter of it. So, like as I said, his pacing is pretty atrociously bad. So yeah, his prose is like fucking amazing. Like that was a book I just kept on reading because the prose is like fucking. It's like honey. It's just so smooth, and you're just gonna keep on going and reading more. But yeah, okay. Again, yeah, as I said, you're conflating being a great writer with just having good prose. He's good in pretty much every other way except prose. That's enough to be a great writer. Like, for example, I don't really think Frank Herbert is a great prose writer. I found his prose to be like quite difficult to read, but fucking everything else about his books are great. Again, okay, I probably applied Embarrassed Smiles. This suspicious me no shit because you're coming out to them like yeah okay you like him, but his writing shit isn't it? They'll look at you like what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Yeah, quite literally, what the fuck is wrong with you? Okay, they probably think I don't know my Kaladin from my Eladin. I do. I even like Kaladin, see my way through Way of Kings where Kaladin talks to a mysterious stranger. It's Hoyd yet on the shattered plains. Story doesn't live until it's imagined in someone's mind. Yep, Hoyd says, I do know what that meant. Do I know what that means? Not exactly. I mean, yeah, I can kind of guess it. It's a good metaphor for writing in general. Okay. And even then, telling a story, until somebody can like actually imagine the story and in their mind, yeah, I get it. And means not exactly, and that's exactly why I read some sci-fi and fantasy. Why I approach only read sci-fi and fantasy. Again, how could you only read sci-fi and fantasy, and then, as you said at the beginning, not really know anything about Sanderson for their plays on profanity, the essence of storytelling beyond words. Yeah, exactly. Beyond words too. Yeah, storytelling beyond words. It's not just the fucking prose. Since you seem to be obsessed with that. What am I saying? Gibberish, most likely, and hypocrite and hypocrite. He's saying he's a hypocrite. Yeah, you are a hypocrite. Fuck it. Sanderson is a bad writer. I've already said it. Again, just being bad at prose is not the same thing as being a bad writer. Like, there's more aspects to writing than just the fucking prose. I've already said it. Here's my convention. Most of the panelists aren't even writers. Most don't care about sentence. They care about Sanderson. Except for multiple panels, if you just publish content, which is called as a convention, Dragon Steel, blah blah blah. Now for the comes now something 15. Yeah, okay, yeah. This is the year of Sanderson. The panelists keep saying 4 new books with special swag for backers, new toys, sparkling bookmarks, blah 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 blah. Yeah, okay. The audience all hoots. This is myself. This is not the fairest fantasy. If hang on, audience hoots. All this stuff in myself is not the spirit of fantasy. When will they? How isn't it? If it's a world building, it's only world building. One thing the world builders will. What? Oh, I'm maybe just too tired for this shit. The audience hoots. All of this, I think to myself, is not the spirit of fantasy. Then what the? Okay. Then what is it? Then what is the spirit of fantasy? Like, what do you think the spirit of fantasy is? Oh, for fuck's sake. Let's keep on going. If it's world building, it's only world building one thing, the world builder's world. Yes? Okay. 3 days later, I pull up Sanderson's built world, his homes in a gated community of American Fork, Utah. There are 3 properties on the left. The newest one, the subterranean man cave, unofficially known as the supervillain lair, officially the Amaranth Club, complete with a 28-seat industry movie theater. Middle structure, it's his home, as 3 boys play. On the right is the Cosme House, which serves as the Dragon Sales HQ. Alright, props and merch for books and books for days. And that's what I'm saying, specifically in the Elantra suite. In this cover art from blah blah blah. Okay. The was best shower. Okay, cool. Already knew about the shower because a few nights earlier I had gone out for drinks with a friend Sanderson I met at the con over contextualizing Sanderson's success for me, basically, because that's exactly what they want. I'll say that's true. She insisted that I stay the night in the Elantra suite. You have to try this out. I'll text the next morning. I wake up. Okay, cool. Sanderson's assistant, his wife's sister. As I orient myself within the Cosmere half, I keep running into his nearest and dearest, his doppelganger brother. Oh, I don't know he had a brother. Okay, multiple siblings in law, neighbors, people's children's friends. Sanderson's formed a writing group with it almost 30 years ago. He has talked about them before. Yep. Back in college, blah blah blah. He's never worked great with so he could write. Okay, very good. The writers group still meets every Friday, which happens to be today. It's the most PC gathering of writer hopes to ever be. There are chips, sodas, some baked and apple crisp. Okay. Before the meetup kicks off, I corner some of the regulars. I love how he writes it. It's like, Jesus. Okay. The gossiping, crackling jokes, one dragon steals new head of narrative, just let slip their dragons and feels no pain. It's true. Sanderson's sister-in-law says, even though he writes for 8 hours a day on a couch, he has no backaches. The horses cause scanty squirt. At the dentist, he refuses Novocaine for fillings. Okay. I said I need to confirm he does. Okay. So, interesting, but this is right, okay. What's this character's motivation? Can the reader follow that fight sequence? Sanderson gets feedbacks with half his brain, the other half occupied with autographing his books. From what I understand, autographing books is not it's not overly complicated. Like you can pretty much do that on rote. I've done that before where I had to fill in a page for one of my mates' fathers. He had like 1,000 pieces of paper, and I had to go through and write one thing on each. And eventually, you can just turn off your mind and just flick through all of them and do it. Okay. So Ryan's smiling, and she says, "Yeah." Actually, at the moment, looks pain. He might not feel. He says, but characters do. They agonize, cry, and rejoice in love. That's the reason he writes, to feel human. Okay. Probably has some autistic traits there, but hey. The conversation turns into a theme arc called Evermore, located just down the street. Though unaffiliated with Sanderson, it's Sandersonian to the core. You hang up around taverns and bucket quests. We have to go, I say, but it's falling apart. Everyone groans. Something to do with bad management. There's a great video by, what's her name, Nicole something. But there's a great video you can watch about that. It's very interesting. There's a 4-hour YouTube video on it, but that will probably be the video I'm talking about. Still, Sanderson seems tempted. We all leave at that, go back to the Elantra suite, blah blah. If I take a shower, the multiple shower heads, I turn on everything, what hits me from every angle. I don't cry, but I could. Okay. I do cry the next night, last night in Utah. We're down in Sanderson's below ground movie theater, plush red seats, blah blah blah. He decides it, but adjustable headrest, cool. Wants to show specs off, so he plays the opening scene of The Greatest Showman. I don't tell him that while I like musical, I hate The Greatest Showman, especially Hugh Jackman. Okay, so someone else you would be insufferable to, I see. The scene starts, the chair shakes with otherworldly sound. When Hugh opens his mouth to sing, I can't help it, I burst into tears. But I can imagine looking after this guy. You host him at your place, and he's probably going up to everybody, asking invasive questions, being incredibly pushy, and then you start playing, you start going to show off your movie theater, and he just breaks into tears at the opening scene of The Greatest Showman. Shit, dude. Oh, fuck, that would be so weird. Oh, fuck. So that's the sculpture, the centerpiece of the thing. That's a pretty cool sculpture, I'm not gonna lie. What's happening to me? This story isn't coming together. To my mind, I still haven't gotten anything real from Sanderson, anything true. I'm not the first person he has toured around his lair to politely gawk at his treasures and trophies in hallways of custom stained glass renditions of his favorite books, Tolkien, Harry Potter, the Belgrade. I'm too not the first person who told us one favorite book, Barbara Harbsey's Dragonsbane, which is Englishly to put in his hands when he was probably 14, probably the day he became a fantasy writer. Okay? Or how he first got published, blah blah, or about the phone call he got from Robert Jordan's editor asking if he might finish work time. These stories are all over the internet. Okay. Okay, one woman I talked to at the con should tell me which one of his Santa's pets were favorite. It's Jello the parrot. Okay. After I recover from Hugh in 4D, Santa collects his 15-year-old and we drive to the dinner. This time the food is better, it's Japanese, blah blah blah. Santa and I order ramen. Then I watch his son salt his. I could cry again. I asked Sanderson if he's ever been moved by a scene. He writes until he cries sometimes, he says, though it might not be the scenes people expect. Alright? Like, I don't know why you're just. He just constantly is giving shit. Like, okay, you're giving shit for him salting his food, or his son salting his food, and him, I guess, but, like, okay, if they want more salt in their food, who cares? He won't say more, but something you can probably tell I'm getting sick of this. But fuck, I'm going to get through to the end. It's just he's just so mean spirited the whole time. It's like okay, he won't say more, but it's something. This conversation from 5 months ago, I recall fairly clearly. We're heading towards something now, some kind of emission. I can feel it. When a woman asks a god for a sign, they speak of a burning in the bosom. Say you're a kid wondering what you should be a fancy writer, then you go up and go, okay, you might ask God what he thinks, and if there's a burning in your bosom, that's probably a yes, okay? Whatever. So I press Sanderson again, like, you probably came across as incredibly standoffish in the moments he's felt the burning. He says they're too intimate, too special to talk about. That's fine. Yeah. Again, these are like, you're incredibly pushy and standoffish. Like, you're trying to ask people about their deepest moments in their life, and you haven't shown from if you acted exactly how I think you acted from when you're writing this, like I wouldn't want to talk to you about anything intimate either because you kind of sound like an ass. Okay, now talk about Mormonism in another way. Let's talk about how it relates to fantasy because it's no secret Mormonism is the fantasy of religion. If you said that out loud to him, like fucking hell, like that you could technically say that's true for all religions. You know, science fiction edition of Christianity, I've heard it called, with its angels, its alternate histories, embodied God, visions, placement of God, blah blah blah. I got the ultimate promise of religion right, the promise of being as I understood it, that we humans will, if we're good and marry well and memorize the passcodes, eventually pass to the highest kingdom and come to our own divine inheritance. We will become gods, in other words, and get our own planets. I think that's kind of a cool afterlife, to be honest. Sanderson doesn't balk at the characterization. He agrees that's the gist, and he knows where I'm going. He knows that I want to know if what he's doing, writing fan books, is fundamentally, in some way, some very central way, Mormon. Of course it is. He says the world building, the gods incarnate, the system of magic is so much of Mormonism is about rules. So are his books, where miracles don't happen unless you put in the work. Okay? That's when between mouthfuls of pork cutlet, again, you're painting like a picture of him as being sort of unsophisticated. Sanderson makes a connection between his works and the work of the Heavenly Father explicit. This is where he speaks the 7 words of truth, the only ones I'm certain he has never said in quite this way, but even before I build books, Sanderson says, as I sit there for once entirely enraptured, and God builds people. I build books as God builds. As I build books, God builds books. Okay. Okay, it's an interesting quote. Again, it's probably not as deep as you're trying to make it out, but okay. We descend on one final world after dinner. Staying forevermore, the rundown theme park. The night is misty and cold. Goodness, I actually don't know how to say that. I've probably got some dyslexia, especially when I get tired. Holy shit, I can't read. As I remember once Sanderson's friend saying the theme park is only open at night to conceal the decay. Probably. I believe it. As we walk around, Sanderson narrates, those are bad prosthetics. That's half a costume. Should it be there? Should there be more skeletons in the dungeon? At least the apple cider is good. Okay. He gets recognized by everybody. I guess as inevitable when you go to Fantasyland or a fantasy legend who has literally purchased a 5 million plot of land across the way for who knows what world building reasons. Okay, since the son, I start keeping a secret tally. Every time a new fan walks over, we hold our fingers behind our backs. We quietly run out of fingers. One girl says she wants to take Sanderson's writing class at BYU when she grows up. Cool. A surprising number of guys asked for autographs for my girlfriend. Lots of people have already finished the latest book, which came out like yesterday. I mean, they're probably just insecure about asking for themselves. A lot of guys are like that for some reason. I don't know why. Let's carry on. We are literally almost at the end. Thank God. Sanderson shines in these situations. He's your god, but he's your friend too. Fucking hell. Or, they could just be fans of his works. He's your god, but he's your friend too. Oh, fuck. Okay. He's also unafraid to drop hints about future projects. He does this to me at certain points. Will they ever make a big movie version of one of your books? More than likely than not. I ask him in the fairy garden. Sanderson makes meaningful noises. Even though your system magic seems unfathomably complex, more meaningful noises. Everything's been obscured. Okay, I would not say that they're unfathomably complex. They're normally pretty simple. They normally use like a system of being kind of simple in premise, but the execution is always what's really fucking interesting. Like if you think about Stormlight, for Kaladin when he flies, what he basically does is he looks in a direction and he makes gravity affect him in moving that direction, and they call that a lashing, and he can do it multiple times to essentially increase the G's he's under. Okay, yeah. Everything's opinion, but okay, I expect there will be big announcements soon. They have to be. Sanderson is bigger than ever. A good writer, who knows? I mean, yeah, his prose is good, but as I said, everything else is. What do I know? Yeah, what do you know? Now this is so many of us have mistake sentences for story. Yeah, that seems to be what you do. Again, you seem to be overly obsessed with prose, but story is the thing. Things happen, characters changing, surprise endings. As I drive back to the house, drop off this kid, and then stay in the car with Sanderson a bit longer, talking about life, talking about worlds. My ending takes shape, and the surprise is that Sanderson's ending all along, the ending of his best books, the character becomes a god, the god beholds Planet Yo. If Sanderson's a writer, and that is all his doing, he lives in this fantasy land, the godhead on earth. Fucking hell, that's a Jesus. That was a slog to get through at the end. Yeah, I'm gonna fucking go edit this and get it up, but Jesus Christ, fucking hell. Um, I'm just gonna leave it at that, to be honest. Yeah, you can probably tell that I was not overly fond of how this guy characterized the whole thing, but there we go.